Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today we are live with a very special guest, author AJ Vrana.
Yay!
She is a Serbian-Canadian academic and writer from Toronto, Canada. She lives with her two rescue cats, Moonstone and Peanut Butter, who nest in her windowside bookshelf and cast judgmental stares at nearby pigeons. She may be the smartest person we know. Her doctoral research examines the supernatural in modern Japanese and former Yugoslavian literature and its relationship to violence. And her Master of Health Studies research focuses on type 1 diabetes and emotional labor in young adults. When not toiling away at caffeine-fueled scholarly pursuits, she enjoys jewelry making, cupcakes, and concocting dark tales to unleash upon the world. Welcome to the podcast, AJ.
That's a hell of an intro.
Yeah.
I know, I love
For
it.
goodness sakes.
Like,
I'm going to ask you some questions now.
well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, and I feel like you already got like the craziness of the Imaginarium panel that you did with us, which was so much fun. And you're going to be back there next year, right?
Yes, I
Okay,
will.
good. We'll be there too.
Yay!
That's great. So you'll have to send us your panel thoughts on what you want to do, what our host bombs can be.
Well, I definitely won't be voting for the finish the spell. I'm still traumatized from that. I was terrified. I was like, oh God, no.
You know what? Everybody hated the tropes. Like they did not want to guess what the tropes were. And I was like, you're not going to get it right anyways. Like just have some fun.
Just go with it. Yeah.
So I do have a side question for you real quick, because in your bio, it talks about researching into type 1 diabetes. Do you have a personal connection to that?
Yeah. So I have type 1 diabetes.
Okay.
I've had it since I was 15.
Oh, wow.
So it's funny because not a lot of people know that there's like two different types of diabetes. And so type 1 is also called juvenile diabetes, and it's usually diagnosed in kids or teens. And it's an autoimmune illness. So like your immune system attacks the insulin producing cells in your body. And so you don't produce insulin, which means you can't metabolize carbohydrates.
Right. Isn't that fun?
Super fun.
Yeah, I thought that was such a unique thing to have in your bio. I was like, oh, I wonder if she is diabetic. So okay, well, let's just dive right in, because we want to hear all about your amazing work and then ask you a bunch of silly questions and just giggle and drink cocktails together.
Excellent.
So tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming an author, because you're working on a doctorate. You obviously have a lot of other things going on in your life. So tell us how you got there.
So I can't say I'm one of those people who has always dreamed of being an author. That was never really my story. I've always enjoyed writing, but it was not particularly fiction. I actually used to write poetry when I was an angsty teenager. And for a while that was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a poet. And then I don't know, I just stopped. But what really got me into wanting to write professionally in fiction was a literature class that I took during my undergrad.
Oh, cool.
And it was actually a Japanese literature course. And we were reading a lot of very like literary fiction, so kind of highfalutin. But I was really fascinated by like how much could be expressed through fiction that rung true to experiences. And that was the first time I ran into this like idea that sometimes fiction is better at telling the truth than, I guess, like clinical descriptions of events.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And like that's kind of when I started dabbling in fiction. And I first wrote a short story that I then decided to expand into a novel, and that kind of just became the basis for me wanting to pursue publication. So I kind of stumbled into it, honestly, more than, like trying, like I'm going to be an author one day.
Isn't that how all the great things happen in life, though? You're like, oh, I think I want to do this all of a sudden. And I never thought I would want to. And I think that's really, really cool that you did that. So was there a particular piece of literature in that class that inspired you?
Yeah, actually. So there's an author called Murakami Haruki. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. I think he's like, again, like kind of in the sort of highfalutin like literary world that I'm actually not even a part of. Like I love writing commercial fiction, but I read a book by him called Kafka on the Shore. And like when I read it, I was like, this man was on cocaine when he wrote this. Like he had to be.
Kafka, like Metamorphosis Kafka.
So yeah, so he has like a character called Kafka, who's like a 15-year-old boy, who his father gives him an Oedipal prophecy saying that he's going to have sex with his mother and kill his father.
Ooh.
And it's really like
Hate it
weird.
when that happens.
It's super
I
weird.
had $1.
Super weird. And like, and the boy just goes by Kafka for some reason. And he talks to this like crow throughout the entire book, and like you don't even know if the crow is real or not. But that's kind of the basis of the book, and it's just really like weird. It's just a trip, and you kind of just go with it. And I don't know why, but it just hit home for some reason. I was like 21, and I was like, this is really cool. I don't know what it means, but I like it.
Yeah.
And so there's actually, I actually have a raven in my first book called Kafka.
Right. Yeah.
And I have a scene where the raven gobbles up somebody's eyeballs, which is also a scene from Kafka on the Shore. So I drew a lot from that book, like in some very direct ways and then in other subtle ways, but they are nothing alike.
Right. A nice little homage to the original.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a random side question. So thinking about kind of weird books where you're like, I don't really know what this is, but I really like it. Have you ever read The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake?
No, I've never
Okay.
even heard of that.
I'm going to recommend 2 books to you. That is one of them. And anybody else who wants to read a book that makes you go, this is really weird. The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake is really good. It's kind of a metaphor for like coming of age.
I'm pretty sure my husband forced both of you to read
he did,
that.
but
And
I
he's
really
not
loved
been
it.
able to force me because I hate everything he recommends.
Mine's a book club book, actually.
It's really good, but it's one of those like kind of weird ones. And then there's another one that we read more recently for our book club that we do right now called Night Bitch, which is about like motherhood. But they're both that same kind of like, I don't know if I really get this, but I do like it.
But so in Night Bitch, like the whole fantasy element, she's slowly becoming a werewolf as a new mother. So
it's really cool.
Yeah, it's like this whole allegory behind like losing yourself and all this stuff. So it's kind of neat.
I love that.
Whitney loved it. Those of us that have already like drowned out that phase of life were like, God, this was hard to read.
I was like, somebody gets me. I'm a night bitch too.
Oh, you sure are, honey. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your doctoral research. You know, what are you doing? How's that impact your writing? Because honestly, there aren't very many fiction authors we talk to that are doing doctoral methodology in their work.
Yeah, I actually do know one other person who is she has her doctorate, but it's in anthropology, so it's a different field. But so I am weirdly enough like a literary scholar, so I research literature and I write literature, which is, you know, kind of a weird combo. But my actual research is on the supernatural in modern fiction and its relationship to violence that is like particular to the nation state. So kind of like the modern construction of the state, which we call the nation state.
That's kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, does it scare you when you're researching these things?
I wouldn't say it scares me, but it is like, it can be mind-blowing sometimes when you see the ways that like people find weird ways to just talk about like trauma, like especially like systemic trauma. Because I look at like moments of crisis in countries. So for example, like the end of World War II in Japan, or even just when like a country is coming out of like colonization or from imperial control from, you know, a Western country, and they're becoming like a modern nation state for the first time. And then if you look at the literature that's being produced during that period, it is like wild, the kinds of stuff that people write about. And they use ghosts and monsters and like vampires to kind of
Right, I was gonna say, because it's all about escapism, right? Like when things kind of suck, everybody starts getting into escapism.
Well, to be honest, I actually don't think it's escapism in this case. I think they're actually trying to talk about the trauma by using like metaphor.
Right. They're like, no one's gonna see through this. I'm gonna write out my feelings on paper.
Yeah, like you see ghosts a lot, like ghosts come up in this notion of like haunting because people feel haunted by like their trauma. So they use the ghost as like a way to kind of work through that. So it's stuff like that. And I think it's really like for us, it might seem like escapism now, but I think for those people, they were like really in it. Like they were kind of, and they just didn't have language to talk about it directly.
It's fascinating to me because that kind of, it's almost like it's easier to talk about something that doesn't seem real than what is actually real, you know?
Third person. Like this
Yeah,
happened to this
yeah.
character I created, not me. Like
Super
it does make
fascinating.
it easier.
Mhm,
So
yeah,
you said
for
something
sure.
earlier about how sometimes it's easier to write to tell the truth through fiction. And so I'm assuming that's how this has all impacted your writing. So can you tell us more about what you meant by that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is an idea I'm really fascinated by. And the epigraph in my first book is stories aren't told to tell the facts, they're told to tell the truth.
Mm.
And I think that like storytelling is a really interesting way of getting to the heart of a matter, even if you're not being completely factual. And one of the ways that we see this is actually through folklore, where like in a lot of communities where you don't have like a modern way of recording history, for example, people come up with like stories that become stand-ins for an experience. And usually that becomes like folklore over time. And that folklore, it might seem to us like, oh yeah, there aren't really like ghosts and you know, like weird talking trees and stuff. But there's something about the experience or the feeling that those stories evoke that's very like truthful to the experience of the community. And so I think that's like kind of what folklore represents for a lot of people. And then folklore was sort of used to become it was like an early way of starting to write like horror fiction, especially. So a lot of early modern horror fiction is kind of derived from folklore.
I love that. Yeah. Well, and I'm sitting here thinking about all of the folklore that we research for the podcast all the time and how it's never surface. There's always just layers and layers and layers to this folklore, which I think is really kind of cool.
Mhm.
So I think Mindy, you read Hollow Gods, right? So Mindy has read part of the Chaos Cycle duology. And so we do know a little bit about that, but we would love to hear more. And, you know, our listeners want to hear more about your duology and the Chaos Cycle. I know you've got a new book coming up, Wild Blood. And then yesterday on Facebook, you're in a horror, or not on Facebook, on Instagram, you're in a horror anthology. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So tell us about all of that.
All the things.
Okay.
Let's start with Chaos duology.
Sure. So yeah, it's a 2-book series. So it's not super long or you know, it's not a massive commitment. But it's got 3 narrators, and they kind of play like different thematic roles in the story. But the main character is a college age student, a girl called Mia, and she lives in this like small little town in kind of the middle of nowhere, British Columbia. And there's this folklore about this creature called the Dreamwalker who kidnaps young women and kind of spirits them away into the woods. And when they come back, they almost always end up dead. And so Mia thinks that she is the next victim of this supernatural kidnapping. But she's also like depressed and, you know, she's having like a bit of an existential crisis. Like she's broke. She doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life. And so there's a part of her that's kind of like, well, is it so bad if I get kidnapped like by this like
if you could like kidnap me and just feed me a good meal, like you know.
yeah.
Does that mean I can take a nap?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, like life
So
is
bored in my
exhausting.
cell, I might as well just catch up on some sleep. Could I get a good book while I'm in here, please? You're like, no one needs me. I don't have to clean anything.
Right?
This sounds great.
Oh my God, I know, right?
When you say they come back not alive, do you mean they return and then they end up dying, or they like come like their bodies are found?
They come back and then they're killed by someone close to them almost every time.
Oh, like so
Okay.
like they're cursed or something kind of
Yeah, yeah. And kind like, oh, I was about to spoil it.
I want to read it.
Don't tell me.
tell.
Because the thing with Imaginarium is we split, everyone that was on the panels, we split up the book list, but because we couldn't all three read like all 21 books or whatever.
Yeah.
And so like Mindy got yours, but now I'm like, dang, I wish I'd gotten it.
I know, right?
So I'm gonna have to read it. But we spent so much money at Imaginarium, like I'm still not buying books, so it's gonna have to be in a little bit. So I went home with a lot.
It's a wild ride, I will say that.
Yeah.
It's the end of it. I actually I closed it and I was like, that was amazing, but I don't really know what I just read. Like, and so it took me days to process. Like, I was like, okay. It's really amazing.
No, I like that. I like that reaction. It is like a very twisty book. Like it's yeah, there's like lots of stuff happening and it kind of like what's what. So and it was intended to be that way. So I love hearing that. But yeah, no, so I mean, Mia's the main character, but then you have like the most popular character is Kai, who's the sort of like the love interest. And he is this very like gruff and abrasive and traumatized young man with like kind of like a dark past, you know, everyone loves that.
I was like, how we like all of our book boyfriends.
Yeah, so exactly. And then there's and I talked about this guy a little bit at Imaginarium, Mason, who is a grieving oncologist who comes to this town to like get away from his life, but he ends up like obsessed with this folklore and he wants to disprove it, but the more he tries to disprove it, the more it becomes real for him, and so he just kind of like loses his shit while he's trying to figure things out.
Well, how cool is that? All right, so I'm gonna go buy this book real quick. I literally cannot buy any books right now.
I'm thinking in my head, like, do I have to do this arc right now, or can I read her book first? I'm trying to schedule it out in my head while we're talking.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us about the new book coming out, Wild Blood.
So that is kind of a spin-off standalone from the Chaos Cycle duology, and it's about Kai. So it takes place after the duology, and I've written it so that it should be accessible to new readers. So anything like from the duology, I explain and then you know, just go with it. But it's a self-contained book, and it's kind of about his past. So in this book, he kind of like works as an underground fighter, and he's like
folklore fighter or like MMA.
Like MMA, but it's like an underground like fight club kind of a situation, so it's a lot bloodier than MMA.
God, MMA is really bloody. So like,
yeah.
I picture like Gabe in the Bonds That Tie, like the underground shifter.
Oh yeah, don't get me horny.
Well, Kai is a shifter, like, ironically. So yeah.
All she has to do is say the title of that book, and I'm like, I'll be back in 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, everybody.
Fine, I can wait.
We like last week when we posted the episode, like our quote from the week was, "We're a sex positive podcast," because we always go off the rails about it somehow. Okay, so that book is about Kai. So because it's about his past, would you, if someone wanted to do a reading order, would they read that or the duology first?
Duology first.
Okay, and then when does Wild Blood come out?
It's coming out in October 2024.
Oh, okay. So there's still a little bit of time before it
There's
comes out.
there's time. It's an editorial right now. So yeah, my partner's actually reading it right now. He's my like beta reader, and he has the whole thing like printed off on.
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I could let my husband beta read for me. I know I couldn't be beta read for him because I would be like, this is stupid. You should write this the way I want to write it, right? I'd be like, this guy needs to growl more in her ear.
And he's like, it's a textbook.
It's about concerts.
My husband has his own podcast. He's actually our producer, and like I don't listen to it because I'm like, you really should have like said that joke here instead, and that's not nice, right? So and luckily I don't do that to my friends, or I wouldn't have any. Okay, so tell us about the horror anthology.
Yeah, so it's actually published by an Australian publisher. And they almost like exclusively do horror, but
cool.
So it's got like I think like 20 authors in it, and it's called This Fresh Hell, and it's basically like old tropes told anew. So the requirement for the anthology was that we had to choose a trope that is really like well worn and give it a new spin. So I did, so my story is called Sapling, and I did actually vampires and werewolves.
Cool.
But, and actually to your earlier question about my research, I am a actual vampire expert. I was hired by a
Really?
museum to do an exhibit on vampires, because my dissertation has a whole chapter on vampires. And so I actually used like the OG folklore around vampires that like nobody knows about
That's
to
cool.
actually
Oh,
like
that's
write the
awesome.
story.
Okay, well, I can't wait to read that then, because I like my husband teases me all the time. He's like, "Oh, did you read this book?" And I'm like, "Is there a vampire in it?" Like, I do. I need some sort of like otherworldly, because the real world sucks. You know what I mean? Like, and my husband's like, "Oh, but it's like really interesting about blah blah blah." I'm like, "Is there a vampire in it?" Otherwise, I'm not really
Or an 800-year-old fae.
right. Exactly. Does he have a tail? Is he blue? Okay, so I know you kind of giggled when I sent you this question beforehand, but I was really intrigued by this because your books do deal with possession and dream walking, which I find so interesting because possession and dream walking are very similar to each other in a way. And so my question to you was, if you could be possessed by anyone, real or fictional, who would it be and why?
Okay, so I thought about this for a really long time.
See, thought-provoking questions.
So I actually talked to my partner about it too, and he was like, I want you to be possessed by Kai because you would get into so much trouble and it would be hilarious to watch. But I wouldn't enjoy that because I would probably end up dead. But I did think that one fictional character that I would allow to possess me is Klaus Michelson.
Oh yeah, from the originals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would not be bad.
No.
No,
Yeah.
like let's
What,
work on that for a few minutes.
What kind of stuff would you do?
I just want to be the villain. Like, I want to make epic speeches in a British accent and terrify people.
Oh,
Like,
that's not what I want to do with this body.
I mean, well, like, yeah, okay, I know where you're going, but if you're possessed by him, then like, how does that work?
Well, I want to.
You tell us.
So Klaus is a very passionate person. So I
Yes.
think in that possession, I would want to feel that like passionate side of him. I think that's what makes him such a cool character.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true.
Yeah.
That
I just want to be a dick and get away with it.
Yeah.
that too. for
I mean,
sure.
you can do that now,
I
but
don't know if I get away with it.
I would just start crying immediately and be like, I'm sorry, that wasn't me.
they would nope right out of your body because they'd be like, stop complaining about this. God. That would be a good question for someone who does write about possession and dream walking. Like, what would you do during a possession that would make them nope right out of you? Like, they were like, I can't even handle this, bitch. This is not fun for me. Think about it.
I mean, I feel like if the person possessing you is like an immortal vampire, just get really drunk until you get like sick, because I'm sure they're not accustomed to their body just like freaking out on them.
Oh,
I
that's
would make them
true.
is true.
physically
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
They're like, what is this coming out of my throat?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh no, thank you.
I'm like, you are a vampire expert. We're gonna have to talk more about that next time we see you.
Absolutely. I love talking about vampires. It's like
Well, I think that's really cool that you're an expert
Yeah,
on
me
it. I mean, we've not interviewed anyone else that's a vampire expert. So
Except for Whitney's husband.
he just wants her to watch Twilight so she'll want to do it. That's what he says all the time. So yeah, he's a Edward Cullen expert, unfortunately.
Yeah.
expert.
Yeah. But hey, whatever works in the marriage.
Yeah.
You know. Okay, so one thing I found really fascinating at Imaginarium was when we were talking about music, because I was so intrigued by what people listen to during their writing process. So do you listen to anything, and what genre? What do you like?
So I don't actually listen to music when I write. I'm one of those weirdos who needs like complete silence. If like the TV's too loud in the other room, I'm like, turn it down.
Yeah, yeah.
I just get really like hyper focused, and if something starts intruding on that focus, I get very cranky. So yeah, I don't really listen to music when I write. But in general, I like rock music. So
What's your favorite band?
I don't have a favorite band, but one band that I really like is In This Moment.
I've not heard of them. Where are they from?
I mean, I think they're from New York. They have a female vocalist, and I
cool.
love her vocals. And actually, a story that I love about her is that because they're like a metal band,
Yeah.
and so when she first auditioned, they were like, "There's no way that you can do this, like, because you're a woman." And she was like, "Yeah." And then when they heard her sing, they were just like, "Holy shit!"
Oh,
So,
that's awesome.
um,
I'm gonna have to go look that up.
Yeah.
What's the name
Yeah.
of the band?
In This Moment, yeah.
So
like,
I
it's
posted a
everything,
reel
but-
today. Apparently at Bonnaroo, the lead singer of Paramore went and did that she sang My Hero with Foo Fighters. And so Dave Grohl is like fangirling while he's playing guitar next to her because she has so much energy. I don't know if you've ever seen them live, but like she is all over that fucking stage, like dancing across it back and forth for like 2 full hours, like never seems out of breath. Like, and so he is like so enthralled by her. It's like the cutest little video. I loved it.
Oh wow. Yeah, I've never seen them live before. Actually, it's been a really long time since I've been to a concert.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't done their
Yeah.
post-COVID concert
Yeah,
yet.
I haven't. Well,
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it is a leap of faith, kind of.
that's fair. It took me a really long time just to go back to like a movie theater, to be honest. It was just weird, kind of like being,
It felt like you shouldn't be doing it.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure.
Like I felt like I was doing something wrong.
Well, and
Yeah.
probably when we started doing it again, we shouldn't have, to be
You're
honest.
probably right. You are probably right. So we're going to move on to this portion. First, I'm going to ask you what fandoms you're a part of and what are your kind of nerdy things, because that's sort of what our podcast is based around. It is called Our Nerdiest Thing. So do you have anything that you nerd out about?
So
Yeah.
I have one nerd thing that I'm extremely passionate about, and so I love the Devil May Cry games, the video games.
Oh, I've never
those.
played those.
Yeah, and so okay, I have a very unpopular opinion because at some point, Capcom, the studio, I think it was Capcom who did the original games, they actually outsourced a remake to Ninja Theory, which is they're the game studio who did Hellblade. I don't know if
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I love their studio, and so their remake of Devil May Cry is my absolute favorite, but it is the one that is absolutely shat on by fans.
Oh,
Oh,
So-
of course, because it's not the
'Cause it's not
original,
OG.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, because not the original, but it's my favorite, and I basically have a running theory that fans hate that game because it was made for the female gaze.
Oh, well, yeah,
Yeah.
probably, unfortunately.
is it what kind of game? Is it like an RPG or is it?
So it's like a hack and slash action game
I
that
would
it
call
like,
it dark
alternates
romance
between-
kind of
yeah.
game. Almost.
Sorry?
Not dark romance, but it's a very dark game.
It's a very dark game, yeah, and so yeah, it like alternates between like almost like levels where you just like fight your way through enemies and then like story cutscenes, and that's the formula for all of their video games. But like the original games were, I mean, even with the remake, the audience was primarily like men, and the original games were very much tailored for like guys. So the character, like the main character, he's like very cool and suave, but like and he kind of like objectifies women, but also he never has relationships, and he's also weirdly like desexualized in the sense that like he doesn't actually have sex. And then the remake literally opens with the new version of that character having a threesome, and it was like the wildest thing.
You're
I was
like,
like,
you know
what?
what this was missing?
Yeah.
Menage a trois.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And they completely redesigned him, so he was much more, I think, like what most women would find attractive.
Right.
And they changed his personality, so he was actually a bit softer,
Um,
but also like he like flirts with women more, but also isn't like objectifying a kind of like abstract version of women. So it was much more like
female friendly.
realistic, I guess. And so I was like, I think men are mad about this because like it's not like it both intimidates them and also is not what they like want as their
You're
Right.
like, just
Ideal self.
watch. If you're intimidated, just watch.
Yeah,
That's,
watch
you
and
know,
learn, watch
Right.
and learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think my glasses are fogging up again.
She's excited.
Well, she said threesome, so so now we're going to move on to our nerdy and dirty speed round. And speed means speed. So like first thing that comes to your pops into your mind as quick as you can,
I'm
because
scared.
we found that
Okay.
authors really like to like make sure that they're saying the right things and so but the point is like first thing that comes to your mind, we're gonna do it quick. So starting out with the last song you listened to.
Can I check that? 'Cause
Yeah,
don't know.
sure.
I
Didn't we
literally
just say authors
I know.
really like to be
I know,
right and
right?
check their answers?
oh my gosh, where is it? Oh, it was actually a song from the Fast 10 movie called Bando.
Oh,
Nice.
okay.
I have to
What
check that.
fictional character do you have a crush on?
Dante from the remake, the Devil May Cry remake.
Nice.
Ooh.
So sorry. I know you guys are like, who the hell's that? But yeah,
No,
that's
if you feel it, it's good. So sorry, I did not mean to stumble on my words there. Book series you always recommend.
The Bear and the Nightingale.
What TV series should everyone watch?
I want to say the originals just because it's so much fun.
It is
It
so much
is, it's
fun.
great.
And there's tons of great lore in it
Yeah.
too.
Oh, and Haunting of Hill House. Like anything Mike
Oh.
Flanagan.
God,
Yeah.
that show scares the shit
Yeah.
out of me.
Yeah, that one's a creepy one. A book character that you would get nerdy and dirty with.
Dirty and dirty with. Shit, I don't know.
You
That's
can
a
say
hard one.
Kai.
Actually, yeah, that would be, yeah.
I mean, I would.
That's totally fair. Yeah.
Is Kai the one on the cover?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'd get nerdy and dirty with him. All right.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. I
A
approve.
food that you refuse to eat.
A food that I refuse to eat, like grizzle, like, or on meat.
Oh, like on your
Yeah.
steak? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
gross.
Yeah.
Well, no
That's
thanks.
not food, that's fat.
What superpower would you want to have?
Mind reading. Do I want mind reading?
Ooh.
I feel like that's like I would hate it once I have it, but I want it. So
I feel like that's one that you'd want to have if you could turn it off, but if it
Yes.
was always there,
Yeah.
that would be annoying. Food oh no, sorry. Favorite weekend activity.
favorite weekend activity. Actually writing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Smut or plot.
Balance.
Right answer. Favorite childhood book.
Favorite childhood book. Choose Your Own Adventure, Goosebumps.
Ooh,
Oh,
yeah.
I could choose your own adventure.
Oh,
Goosebumps.
yeah.
I work in a children's library, so I'm
love
always
those
looking for
too.
fun stuff like that. But yeah, choose your own adventures are awesome.
Mhm. I
Currently
hate reading, so that was my thing. Like choose your own adventure. That was the only way I would read.
That's great though. I think if you find what you
Yeah.
that's like
Whatever.
At least
works.
you're reading.
yeah,
Yeah.
at least you're reading.
Mhm.
Speaking of reading, currently reading or the last book that you finished and loved.
Adeline Grace. Oh my gosh. Belladonna. That's it.
Oh my gosh, that was such
That
a
is
good
on my
book.
TBR. I really need to
Yeah.
read that.
I've
I
been
really
shoving
like
it down their throats, but every time I read a book, I shove it down their throats, so they're like 20 behind. I'm like, what I've told
More
them to
than
read.
20.
I'm sorry, I like sharing my joy with you.
Okay, this one's really important. Cake or pie?
Cake.
Oh yeah.
All right, so moving on, we're going to do another speed round, but it's a little different. We're going to do book tropes, yay or nay. So just tell us whether you yes.
All right.
Fated mates,
Yay.
enemies to lovers,
Yay.
forbidden love,
Yay.
the haves versus the have-nots.
I actually don't know what that is.
So like the rich versus poor, kind of like
Oh.
class battles, basically.
I'm gonna say nay on that one.
Okay. Love triangles.
Nay.
Yeah. Secret or hidden identity.
Yay.
Social commentary.
Yay.
True love's kiss or the magical power of love.
I feel like that really just depends on how it's done.
Yeah.
I want to point out that every time you say love, you go love.
Love.
It's the actor.
Uh,
in me. Rejected.
Yay.
What?
Sorry, what?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I think it like that could be a yay, but I'd be
It
like,
has to be well done, is what
yeah,
you're
I'd
saying.
be suspicious.
I can see that. Rejected mates.
Yay, I think.
Touch them and die.
Usually yay. Can get a little too crazy sometimes, but
I think it can be overdone sometimes.
Yeah,
Like it has to be used in the correct way.
Did you read Haunting Adeline?
Oh, I can't. I'm too scared.
So, okay, so I will tell you, I read it because, it was kicked off of Amazon for a while for how dark it is. And so I was really intrigued by that. And it is really, really, really dark. But it's a whole touch her and die thing, but like to that nth level where you're like, he didn't really just do that, did he?
Yeah.
He did not just do that. And the story is very compelling, but for me, it was so violent that I couldn't read the second one, even though I really want to know what happens. But I was curious about it. She's a great writer. I would definitely read something else by her, but she, sorry. But just a little too much touch her and die in that one.
Little over the top.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people about that book, but like I don't think I'll be reading it.
Yeah.
Me
Oh,
either.
I don't
I'm
think
with
I will
you.
either. I can't
I'm
do
like,
too
if
much.
it's too much for me, they're like, oh,
yeah,
they're
that's
not-
for Deborah, forget it.
That's true.
So a few more. Who the trope of who did this to you?
Yeah, I'd say yay.
Small town romance.
Well, I guess technically mine's a small town romance.
I guess technically it is.
So yay.
Okay. Sports romance.
Nay, that's not
Not
my
even
thing.
hockey. You're from Toronto.
Hockey.
I know that's such a like stereotype. I know not all Canadians love hockey. All right. Well, that is it for our book
You did
tropes.
it.
You made it.
Yay.
So AJ, you've got Wild Blood coming out next year. So do you have any other writing projects that you're working on, or are you focusing on that?
So I do have one other thing I'm working on, and it's like a kind of light cyberpunky like fantasy romance. I guess cyberpunk romance. I don't know what like
cool.
I guess cyberpunk is kind of fantasy. But yeah, it's like set in this sort of like dystopian mega city. And the sort of central conceit of it is that there's my main character is actually going to be a type 1 diabetic. And it's the first time I'm actually writing a diabetic character. Like I wasn't ready to touch that for a really long time because it was so loaded for me, but
Right.
now I'm ready. And she like works for this activist. But the thing is that her diabetes care is linked to her employment. So she wears like an insulin pump. And if she breaks her employment contract or gets fired or something, they just turn off her insulin pump. And so she would die.
Right. Yeah.
And so the activist that she works for is targeted by an assassin, and so she finds out about this plot and decides that she wants to like essentially pay the assassin more not to kill this person. So it's kind of like a forced proximity like romance, but also there's that like social commentary of access to like medical care and stuff, and like the lengths that she will go through to make sure that she doesn't lose her access to
Love that. Wow.
medical
Right.
care. So
So intriguing.
Yeah. A little on the nose too for
Yeah.
healthcare right now,
seriously.
yeah,
unfortunately.
for sure.
Yeah. Do you have anything releasing this year or any festivals or appearances? Is this Fresh Hell, is that coming out this year, that anthology?
It's actually supposed to come out this month sometime. They
Oh,
were
awesome.
kind of not super clear on the release date because it's like it's a very small release, and so they did their print run based on their pre-order numbers, so they're actually printing it right now.
Oh,
So
okay.
it should be out like any day now, but I don't actually know the date.
Will there be a e-copy that people can download?
I think so.
Okay,
I would assume so. Yeah. Yeah. I think they were just pushing pre-order sales through their website because Amazon is just so predatory with like
We've
how
been
much
hearing
money they
some
give.
horror stories
Yeah.
lately about Amazon pre-orders, so they
Mhm.
got to get it together.
Yeah.
Or they don't because they're such a huge conglomerate. But still,
Yeah.
it really sucks for authors.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. So I mean, yeah, so that should be out soon. As for events, I'm not doing anything else. Well, actually, I'm doing Fan Expo this year, but that's local to me. It's like a big, just like kind of Comic-Con type convention. And then next year I'm doing a Polycon and Imaginarium again.
Yay. We're
Well, this
excited.
time they're a little bit more spread apart because
Yes.
it's really bad for the authors that were coming straight off of Polycon into
know, right?
Imaginarium.
That's a-
Everybody was
that's a lot.
exhausted. Yeah.
So where can we buy your books?
So they are available at all the regular like retailers. I do also sell signed copies on my website, and obviously that is my preferred like
Yeah.
channel because I actually really like signing copies for people. It's really fun for me. And I get the most money that way. So
Yeah, absolutely.
That's important.
Yes.
Yeah. So besides your website, where can we find you online?
So I'm on Instagram primarily, just a.j.vrana. I'm also on Twitter, but like I don't ever go on there because there's always drama, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
good. And I'm
I
on
only
TikTok,
sign
but-
into Twitter when I want to see someone's drama. I haven't posted in like 10 years, like no joke.
I literally signed up for Twitter this week to see the not safe for work version of an artist's
Which one?
the Lorcan, Lorcan
Oh.
did.
Oh yeah.
Somebody posted it in a
Oh, I didn't know
Facebook
there
group.
was a NSFW
Oh yeah,
version.
somebody posted a Lorcan did illustration, and they were like, the not safe for work one is on the artist's Twitter, and I was like, well, I better sign up for Twitter.
I guess what I know what we're doing after this.
Anyway.
Yeah,
So one thing that we do on our podcast every week as we finish up is we share our nerdiest thing of the week, and it can be book related or not, just something that you really nerded out about. So we would love to know what your nerdiest thing of the week is.
Yeah. So first of all, I handed in my dissertation. So
That's pretty nerdy. I love it.
and then I spent the next like 4 days just playing the new Zelda game.
100%. Yeah.
And
That's
that's
awesome.
That's
that's
great.
all I've been doing. And
That's a great combo of nerdy things, right?
Yes.
Like a productive, accomplished nerdy thing, and then like I just want to do this
Okay,
nerdy thing.
as someone who doesn't play video games, you accomplish a shit ton of video games, especially if
Oh.
you're playing RPGs.
Well,
I know,
that-
I'm teasing, but I'm like, when I'm playing a video game, I'm like, I got so much done today, and I'm like, I didn't move.
I mean, it does feel like accomplishment. Like it hits that like that dopamine center of your brain. That's just like,
true.
yeah, like I finished that quest. I'm so accomplished.
Well, I was gonna say, are you more of a head straight to the villain, or are you a side quest type of person?
I like to balance between main quests and side quests to stop myself from getting like fatigued.
Right. Yeah.
Because I feel like if I just do too many like main quests, I don't really enjoy the game to the fullest. But then if I do too many side quests, I go down that completionist rabbit hole of like chasing down every herb that I need.
That's what I do too. And I'll be like, wait, what was the main quest I was supposed to be doing? Like I need like a someone to give me like
A reminder.
reminder.
Yeah.
Like this is what you're supposed to be doing instead of talking to the old man in the
Don't
village.
forget your task is blah blah blah.
Yeah. And then I
One
get
last
stressed.
question, AJ, as a vampire expert, I'm just curious because I love this show so much. Have you ever watched Midnight Mass on Netflix?
I have,
Okay,
yes.
awesome.
Well, yeah, because
If
it's the
you
same
could
people
just-
that did Haunting of Hill House, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, if you could just email me all of your thoughts about that, so that would be great. Thanks.
I can totally do that. I
That
will
could be a bonus episode, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We could have
Yeah.
like
I
a
would-
4-hour convo with you
Dude,
about that.
I would love to do that. No joke. I love that show so much.
It is really good.
Okay, we're gonna make that happen, even if it's just like you and me.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I love it. I love it.
Don't leave us
I love all of Flanagan's work. So yeah, I could talk about his work all day.
All right. Well,
That's
stay
awesome.
tuned, everybody. We're going to make that happen. Thank you so much, AJ, for
Yes.
being on the podcast. It was awesome to meet you and talk to you at Imaginarium. And it was awesome again to talk to you tonight. We're so excited to spend more time with you next year.
Yeah.
We're going to pretend like it's sooner than that.
Well,
I'll fly
I'll
by.
have to do drinks with AJ.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
I'm like, well, I got to go get a refill. in a second. Yeah, I have a tickle in my throat.
oh,
Thank you so much, AJ.
thank you for having me. This was so much fun.